Hello there everyone and welcome to this video on advanced login systems. We're going to carry out this program. It's going to be done in visualbasic.net. I've created my Windows form application. I've called it advanced login system and I'm saving it in the correct place. So if I go and create my system, and there it is, it doesn't look very good at the minute. It's just a standard form. Everything seems to be set up correctly because I can see my code window and my design view in there. I might want to change some properties of this. So I'm going to change the back color, for example. I'm going to change the name of the form. So let's call this the login part of the form. What I will do is I'll even right click and I'll rename this to be login.vb. There we go. And just double check that's called login as well. Yes, it is. Looks like we're good to go. And what things do I need inside there then? So I'm going to need a button. I'm going to need a text box, probably two of those. One for username, one for password. And I'm also going to need a couple of labels as well to label these text boxes. So label 1 and label 2. So I'll try and build this form as quick as we can so we can get straight into the code. So I'll highlight all of those. I'll just change the font of these so you can actually see it on your screen. There we go. Just separate these up. That looks a bit better. Okay, so let's give these some names then. So some good self-documenting identifiers. So let's take label 1. And I only need to change the text property in this. So I'm just going to call this username. And you guessed it, this is just going to be called password. Make sure it's aligned properly. There we go. And this button is going to be called login. And the button's also going to get a name. BTN, because it's a button, and login. There we go. These boxes are going to be called txt, if I can spell, username, and txt password. Okay, so that's my login form completed. I'm also going to create a couple of other forms as well. So if you go to project and add form, Windows Forms, you'll see that automatically selected is a Windows form. I'm going to add another one for my customer, and another one for my manager. Now, when someone logs in, depending on their credentials, it will direct them to the form, providing if they're a customer or a manager. So these forms here can also take some color, and might even put a label in there. Don't want a second one though. So this label, let's change the text. Manager form. Change the size of that. Copy this. Head over to customer. And just getting this set up. Apologies, I'm going very quick here. Really want to get into the code without making this video too long. Okay, so 3 forms in there. Login, my customer, and my manager in there as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to create another thing up here, but this time I'm going to add something called a module. So I'll add a module in. Now you don't need to change the name of this module, but think of it like a floating file for us. So you notice here it doesn't have a front end. You can't actually interact with it with events. So this is like a form that's going to connect all of our forms together. Now, what I need to do is allow the user to log in with their username and password. It will then go to a file and check the username and password against what's in there. If we get a match, then we check a third variable that says, if the password and the username match, check the third variable, which is the type. Are they a manager or are they a customer? If their type is of type M or manager, then open the manager form. Else, open the customer form. Now to do that, I'm gonna structure everything. Obviously, well, just set it using a structure. So I'll write structure in there, and I'll call this structure login. Okay. Now notice in here in the module, I'll write structure login, and I will put my variables in here. But we need fixed strings. Because I'm storing the records with a fixed size, I'm going to need to put in there something like VB fixed string 30 to allow it to be 30 characters. And this is going to be my username as string. And then I'll do exactly the same thing again, but that one is going to be a password. Okay, so two variables, username and password, going to be stored in my record structure. Now, once I've done that, I said to you I need a third variable, so I'm going to create my third one in here. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, and you might think, why are you doing fixed string just for one single character? Well, I'm just playing it safe at this point. I could just put in there, let's call this type. So the type is going to be of type M or C. M is for manager, C is for customer. So once I've created my structure in here, this thing now is going to look something slightly different to what we've done before. I'm going to write the word public. Now public means that I'll be able to access it from the customer form, the login form, or even the manager form if I choose. Okay, so this is going to be my pointer to my login structure. So I'll say public dim str login. So that's my variable name, structure login. And it's going to be as login. So it's going to be of type structure. And it's got rid of dim there because public will already dimension that for you. Now that's great. I've got a pointer to it. I've got that set up. Wonderful. The only problem is there's currently nothing in my file. So in order for me to add things into my file, I need to do it in the right record length. So the easiest way I've thought to do this is just by writing public sub, public so we can get access to it outside of this module, public sub populate. So I'm going to write a quick procedure that's going to actually populate one record in there. Now this is a really handy little procedure to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly write in there my steps. So you might remember these from previous videos. Step 1, file handling. Step 2, do something. Open the file, do something. And step 3, which I always forget, which is close the file. Okay, so let's just start off with step 1 then. File open. And the parameters, the channel number, the file name, let's call this login file.txt, comma, open mode, random, comma, 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 to the length of str login. Okay, the length of my structure. Add another bracket in. Job done there. So we've opened the file. The next thing is to do something. Okay, do something. Now what do I want to do? I want to create another variable here. Length of file as integer. I need to know how many records I've currently got in my file so that I can append it to the end when I add a new record. And I'll just say here, length of file 1 divided by the length of one record size, which is str login. Now once I've done that, what I need to do then is I need to populate the structure itself. So structure username is given the value of input box. Ask the user a question and say, what do you want to enter into the username record structure? So I'll say enter username and str login. Password equals input box, bracket, bracket, and I'll say enter password, and the last one I need to add in there. And you'd have something similar to this code when you are creating some kind of sign up or adding account kind of thing going on. So password, I need the type there. I'm going to say input box bracket. So manager or customer. And once I've done that, then what I need to do is I've populated the structure. I need to do a file put. Put this in the file. In channel 1, put into the file the str login structure. And where do you want to put it? I want to put it at the position of length of file plus 1. So at the end of that. And after I've done that, I'll go file, close. Job done there. Okay. And that's it so far. So that procedure will open the file, find the length of the file, populate the structure, add it in at the end of the file and close it, which is great. Now my structure's set up in the module, which is fine. If I go to login now, the login form, double click it, double click the form itself to create the load event. And now watch what happens. If I write in populate, notice how it knows where it is. It knows, because it's public, that it's accessible in my program somewhere. So there we go, populate. I've added that in now. Now what I'll do is I will just run the program and it pops up with enter username. So I'll put in there, Bark as my username, my password is JB, capital J, capital B, and I am a manager, and in it goes. Okay, then the login pops up like normal because it completes the load event and pops up the form. If I just stop my program for a second, double check my bin debug folder, and you'll see the login file has now appeared as a text document. And this is promising because it's got 1 kilobyte in there. So if I just double click and open it up, it says Barker JBM. So this will have 30 characters, then the password will have 30 characters, and this end part will just have 1 character before it ends the file. So far, so good. Now every time you run this, it will populate. So what I want to do, comment that out without deleting it. Do that again. Comment that out. So when I want that to happen, when I want to bring that in to add something, I can do just for testing purposes. So at this point now, I've populated my file with my login instructions. What I want to do is I want to get the login itself working. So I'll just double click login. And now what I need to do is a number of steps. I need to open the file, search for the file for what the user enters, the username and password, find a match. If it matches, then I'll check its type, and if its type is manager, open the manager form. If its type is customer, open the customer form. So let's do that then. So step 1, what we'll do is we'll do file open brackets, channel 1. What was the file called? It was called login.txt. Now pay particular attention to opening it like that, because you need to make sure that the file is named exactly the same as what the file is called in your debug. So mine's login with a capital L and a capital F. So that, I've got it wrong in the first place, but that is the name of my file. It needs to be exact. So please do go away and check that before you do it. After that, I give it my open mode in random, comma, to the length of, and it should be able to access the structure from the module still. So there we go. So that's global, and there we go, we've accessed it. Now, once you've done this, we can say open the file. Step 2 is do something. So what we want to do is open the file, iterate through it, find the thing we're looking for, and if they match compared to what the user's entered, then hey presto, we've got a match. So if we say do while not EOF, and you say channel 1, so this is going to say while we've not finished and got to the end of the file, keep looping. We can use the file get, put in the channel in there, and what do we want to put the information in? We want to put it inside the structure. Now if you put a comma and leave this last one blank, what it'll do is it'll iterate automatically through the entire file. So it'll take the first record, take it inside, and then we do a comparison. So we say if str login dot username is the same as what the user enters from txt username dot text. Now the important thing to point out here is that when you bring in str login username, we have text that is of fixed length. So that means that if you create a username that is less than 30 characters, it will pad it out with white space up to 30 characters. So if you compare whatever username's been entered plus the rest of the white space characters up to 30, it will not match with whatever the user's typing in. So it's important here that you use the trim command to remove any leading or trailing white space from the record. Now if that matches, then what we can say is we can say and, using the Boolean operator, and trim strlogin dot password equals txt password dot text. Okay, close the bracket. Ooh, no we don't, not there. Missed it. There we go, bracket goes there. So let's just have a look at that for a second. Missed my end if, there we are. So I've got if trim structure login username, so take all the white space off and compare it with what the user's entered, and then do the same for password. So both conditions need to be true on that record in order for it to pass. Now if it does pass, this means that the username and password is correct. Okay? All we need to do now is check to see if the str login dot type is equal to an M. So if it's an M, that means it's a manager. What we need to do is say manager dot show. So show the manager form, and then we can say else if, or else, sorry, because we can say else here because the only other option that we have is a C or an M. Now you can be more particular than this. You can say else if strlogin.type equals C, and that will match a customer, and then you can do an else to say we don't recognize that type of person here. So that's your choice. You can take that a little bit further if you want, but I'm going to say if it's not an M, it's definitely going to be a C. So I'll put show in there and it goes in. Definitely not manager, John. It's definitely customer. So there we go. Customer goes in and show the customer form. Okay, now before you show the form itself, we need to think about where we're going to close the file. And that's really important because if we don't close the file, when we open these forms, the file will still be hung open. So normally what we'd do is we'd say step 3 goes down here and we close it like normal, right? Now this might cause us problems a little bit later on, but I want to see if we can get that error so I can show you what that looks like. Now then, let's see if this does anything at all. I'm going to put a breakpoint and go through this line by line, debugging it. So on line 6, I'm just going to click in the margin to add a breakpoint on. And adding a breakpoint is a fantastic way to debug and understand what your program is actually doing. So let's see this in action. And here we are. So looking in my file, I'll make sure I'm accurate here. So my username was Barker with a capital B, and my password was JB, capital J, capital B. I click login. It hits line 6 and we stop there. I press F11 and we go inside. It opens up the login file in random mode. Once it's done that successfully, it will move on to line 11. Do while not, end of file. Then it gets the record from the first position, which is position 1, and if I hover over strlogin, then you'll see that it's found the password to be JB with the rest of the white space, the type to be M of type character, and Barker with the rest of the white space. So now what it'll do is if I look at strlogin, it will say username is Barker, and then this one is JB. Let's see if it passes that condition. Yes, it does. So that means we've got a match. Then we check the type. So the type is M, so it should go in here, passes that condition, and it opens up the management form or the manager's form. Once it's done this, it will jump down to the end if, jump down to the loop, and it'll keep going. Now, it's reached the end of the file because there was only one thing inside there. Yes, it will actually close the file at this point. Then we end the sub, and then what happens is it loads up the manager's form. There we go. So let's just double check and make sure that this will also work for the customer. So it should be able to direct me in two different ways here. So I'll just stop my program. I'll bring in again, take the breakpoint out, bring in my populate procedure from the module. So now I'm going to add in another username. Let's call this one John is the username and the password is Barker, and this one is also, this is a customer this time though, so I'll click OK and then I get my username and password. I can check the file, it's successfully added in Barker, John Barker and C. So if I type in here, my username is John, my password is Barker, click login, and hey presto, it brings up the customer form. Perfect. Now if I go back and I type in the old one before, if I go to Barker and I type in the password JB, click login, and it brings up the manager's form. So this login allows you to divert between managers and customers. One thing that you might also want to add to your password box, if you're interested, is clicking the box, scrolling down to a property that says password char, and you can replace that for any symbol you like. And then when you run your program, you get this little situation where you can type in username, John, and your password will be replaced for characters, and it still brings up the form like normal. It just hides your characters for whatever symbol that you put in there, and that's the password char property in the bottom right hand corner of your design window. And there we are. So a simple login using a module to hold things globally between all of your forms. And if you do have any more requests, feel free to send them in and we'll get programming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.